Lieutenant Tom Reed shifted uncomfortably in his stiff formal uniform as he entered the grand hall of the Valari High Council. The air smelled sweet, like honey mixed with something he couldn't name. Lights pulsed gently along the curved walls, creating patterns that made his eyes water. "Remember," Captain Morris whispered beside him, "no sudden movements. Follow my lead, and whatever you do, don't stare directly at anyone." Tom nodded. This was his first diplomatic mission, and he didn't want to mess it up. Earth had only recently learned about the Valari, one of the oldest and most advanced species in the galaxy. This meeting could open doors to technologies humans had only dreamed about. The Valari delegates glided into the room. Tom tried not to gape. They moved like water, their tall, slender bodies covered in iridescent scales that changed color with each movement. Where humans would have hair, they had delicate tendrils that waved gently, as if underwater. Their faces featured 4 eyes arranged in a diamond pattern, with no visible nose and a small mouth. High Chancellor Voss approached the human delegation. His scales shimmered deep blue and purple, and the tentacles on his head twisted in complex patterns. "We welcome Earth's representatives," the translator device in Tom's ear announced. "May our meeting bring understanding between our worlds." Captain Morris bowed slightly. "We are honored by your welcome and hope for friendship between our species." The formal greetings continued as servants brought strange drinks in crystal containers. Tom accepted one, trying to mimic the captain's confident manner. That's when he saw her. She stood apart from the other Valari, her scales a paler shade of blue. Unlike the others, whose features seemed to constantly shift and change, hers remained more stable. Her 4 eyes were evenly spaced, her tendrils shorter and less active. By human standards, she looked more approachable, almost beautiful in a strange way. Their eyes met across the room. Tom couldn't look away. There was something in those alien eyes, curiosity, intelligence, that held his gaze. He stared, forgetting all protocol, forgetting everything except those 4 strange eyes looking back at him. A gasp went through the room. The High Chancellor's tendrils froze in place. Then, unexpectedly, the room erupted in what sounded like chirping noises. The translator struggled to keep up. Joy, celebration, union. Captain Morris grabbed Tom's arm hard. "What did you do?" he hissed. "Nothing. I just looked at the High Chancellor's daughter." You maintained direct eye contact for over 30 seconds. A sinking feeling hit Tom's stomach. "Is that bad?" Before Morris could answer, the High Chancellor approached, his scales now glowing bright gold. "The prophecy speaks truth. An outsider shall join our most noble house. We accept your proposal with great joy, Lieutenant Reed." "Proposal?" Tom whispered, his face going pale. Morris looked like he might be sick. In Valari culture, sustained eye contact it's basically a marriage proposal. And you just proposed to the High Chancellor's daughter. Tom started to protest, but Morris cut him off. "And before you say anything, refusing would be seen as a deadly insult that could ruin everything we've worked for." The room continued celebrating around them. The female Valari, apparently now his fiancée, approached with formal, measured steps. "I am Lyra," she said through the translator, "daughter of High Chancellor Voss. I accept your proposal with honor." Up close, Tom could see subtle differences between her and the other Valari. Her features were more symmetrical, her movements less fluid. The other Valari looked at her with what seemed like surprise. Later, safely back aboard their ship, Captain Morris explained the situation fully. "You've accidentally engaged yourself to the ugliest Valari in the galaxy, by their standards anyway. Their beauty ideals value asymmetry and constant change. Lyra's more stable, symmetrical features make her an outcast." Tom collapsed into a chair. "So I'm engaged to an alien I can't communicate with, who their society considers ugly, and I can't back out without causing an interstellar incident." Morris nodded grimly. The High Chancellor actually seemed relieved. "I think he's been trying to find her a match for years." Tom stared at the ceiling. One diplomatic mission. My first one. And now I'm engaged to be married. Look on the bright side, Morris said with a hint of a smile. You've just secured humanity's first alliance with the most advanced species we've ever encountered. Tom groaned. Somehow, that didn't make him feel any better. 3 days after the disastrous reception, Tom sat in a private meeting room aboard the Valari diplomatic vessel. His hands were sweaty, and he kept wiping them on his pants. The door slid open with a soft hiss. Lyra entered, her pale blue scales catching the light. Today she wore what looked like a formal robe, with symbols Tom didn't understand embroidered along the edges. Lieutenant Reed, her translator device, spoke as her small mouth moved. I am pleased to meet with you privately. Tom stood quickly, almost knocking over his chair. Please, call me Tom. He gestured to the empty seat across from him. And thank you for agreeing to talk. Lyra sat down, her movements more deliberate than other Valari. Her 4 eyes blinked in sequence rather than all at once. I must explain about our situation, Tom began, choosing his words carefully. On Earth, eye contact doesn't mean a proposal of marriage. I didn't know I was asking you to marry me. Lyra's head tilted slightly. You wish to break our engagement. I just think there's been a misunderstanding, Tom said quickly. We don't know each other. We're from completely different species. I understand your concern, Lyra replied. Her tendrils moved in slow, controlled patterns. But among my people, breaking an engagement brings great shame. Tom rubbed his forehead. Could you explain more about why eye contact means so much to the Valari? Lyra's scales shifted to a deeper blue. We communicate primarily through chemical signals and scale patterns. Eye contact is intimate, reserved only for those we wish to bond with for life. When you looked at me, it was like shouting a marriage proposal in front of everyone. I see, Tom said, feeling worse by the minute. But why would your father be so happy about this? Surely he'd want you to marry another Valari. Lyra's tendrils drooped slightly. I am not considered beautiful among my people. Why not? Tom asked, genuinely confused. To his human eyes, she looked more elegant than the other Valari, whose constantly shifting features made him dizzy. Beauty for us is asymmetry and constant change. My features are too stable, too symmetrical. She gestured to her face. These even-spaced eyes are considered ugly. My tendrils don't dance enough. My scales change color too slowly. Tom was surprised. But those are the things that make you look nice to human eyes. Lyra's scales briefly flickered to a light purple. Truly. Tom nodded. Humans generally prefer symmetry and stability in appearances. For a moment, they sat in silence, considering each other across the gulf of their different biologies. Breaking this engagement would disgrace my family, Lyra finally said. My father has tried for years to find me a match. No Valari would have me. Tom felt a pang of sympathy, and it would damage relations between our species. Yes, it would be seen as Earth rejecting the Valari. The conservative faction would use it as proof that humans are unworthy of alliance. Tom thought for a long moment. What if we just stay engaged for now? Until we figure out a solution that works for everyone. Lyra's tendrils perked up. You would do this? I don't want to cause an interstellar incident, Tom said with a small smile. And it would give us time to learn about each other's cultures. I would like that, Lyra said. Her scales rippled with a warm golden hue. I have studied humans for many years. Your species fascinates me. Really? Tom asked, surprised. Why? You change so quickly. Your cultures evolve, your technology advances, your ideas transform, yet your bodies remain stable. It is the opposite of my people. Tom realized there was much more to Lyra than he'd initially thought. She wasn't just the daughter of an important alien. She was a person with her own interests and thoughts. Then let's use this time to learn from each other, he suggested. Maybe we can find a way that benefits us both. Lyra extended her hand in what was clearly an attempt at a human handshake. "I believe we can, Tom." As their hands met, Tom wondered what he'd gotten himself into, and whether it might turn out better than he expected. Over the next 2 weeks, Tom and Lyra met daily. Captain Morris had arranged for Tom to stay on the Valari homeworld as part of the diplomatic mission. Each day brought new surprises. "This is our botanical garden," Lyra said as they walked through a massive dome filled with plants unlike anything Tom had seen before. Some moved like animals, while others glowed with inner light. "My personal research center is nearby." "What do you research?" Tom asked, carefully stepping around a vine that seemed to reach for his foot. "Cynobiology, specifically humans." Lyra's scales shimmered with a hint of pink. Tom had learned this indicated excitement or interest. "That is why I speak your language better than most Valari." Tom smiled. "Is that why you agreed to continue this engagement? To study me up close?" "Partly," Lyra admitted, "but also because no one has ever looked at me the way you did at the reception." Tom felt his face grow warm. "I was just surprised. You look different from the others." "Different is a kind way to say ugly," Lyra said, but her tendrils waved in what Tom now recognized as amusement. "Not to me," Tom said honestly. "To human eyes, you're actually beautiful." Lyra stopped walking. All 4 of her eyes blinked at once, a rare reaction. "You truly believe this?" Tom nodded. "Humans generally prefer symmetry and harmony. Your features make more sense to my brain than the constantly shifting appearances of other Valari." For a moment, they stood in silence. Then Lyra led him through a doorway into her laboratory. Inside, screens displayed human anatomy, Earth landscapes, and what appeared to be human art and music. One table held objects Tom recognized from Earth: books, tools, even a small potted plant. "You've been studying us for a long time," Tom said, surprised at the extent of her collection. "My whole life," Lyra replied. "Most Valari see humans as primitive, but I see your potential. You adapt so quickly, think so differently." She touched a control, and suddenly the room filled with music, a classical piece Tom recognized. "Mozart?" he asked, amazed. "Your music fascinates me. It remains unchanged each time you play it, yet conveys different emotions to different listeners." Lyra's tendrils moved in time with the music. Valari music changes with each performance. No piece is ever played the same way twice. As days passed, Tom found himself looking forward to their meetings. He taught Lyra about human customs, showed her pictures of Earth, and explained human expressions. In return, she revealed the complexities of Valari society. "Our people perceive reality differently," she explained one afternoon. "We see chemical trails you cannot. We feel magnetic fields. We sense time passing differently." "How so?" Tom asked. "For Valari, the past and present exist simultaneously in our awareness. The future is harder to grasp." Tom was fascinated. "Is that why your buildings seem to change shape?" "Yes. They reflect our perception that all moments exist at once." She hesitated. "Most Valari find humans limited because you experience time so linearly." "And what do you think?" Tom asked. "I think it gives you focus. Drive. You see one path forward and move toward it with determination." One evening, as Tom prepared to return to his quarters, Captain Morris contacted him. "How's it going with your alien fiancée?" Morris asked with a hint of humor. Tom was surprised to realize the truth. "Actually, I'm enjoying her company. She's brilliant, Captain. The things she knows about the universe, it's incredible." Morris looked surprised. "Don't tell me you're actually falling for her." Tom didn't answer immediately. "I'm just saying, what started as a diplomatic necessity might be turning into something more interesting." After ending the call, Tom looked out at the 3 moons rising over the Valari capital. For the first time, he wondered if finding a way out of this engagement was really what he wanted after all. Tom's communication device beeped early in the morning, waking him from sleep. The stern face of Admiral Wilson appeared on the screen. "Lieutenant Reed, this situation has gone on long enough," the Admiral said without greeting. "Earth Command wants this engagement ended without offending the Valari." Tom sat up in bed. "Sir, it's not that simple. Breaking the engagement would. I don't need excuses, Reed. I need solutions." The Admiral's voice was cold. "We've sent a diplomatic specialist, Dr. Bell. She arrives tomorrow to help you find a way out of this mess." After the call ended, Tom stared at the ceiling. The thought of ending his engagement with Lyra no longer felt like relief. It felt wrong. Later that day, he met Lyra at the Science Academy. Her scales seemed duller than usual. "Is everything okay?" Tom asked. Lyra's tendrils drooped. "The Council of Elders has questioned my father about our engagement. Many Valari oppose alliance with humans." "My government feels the same way," Tom admitted. "They're sending someone to help break our engagement diplomatically." They walked in silence through the Academy gardens. Strange plants changed color as they passed, responding to their moods. "There is something else you should know," Lyra said finally. "Have you heard of the Morden Collective?" Tom nodded. "Another alien species, right? I've heard they're aggressive." "They are our ancient enemies," Lyra explained. "They have been watching Earth for decades. They see humans as a threat." "A threat? We've barely left our solar system." "But you will," Lyra said. "And quickly. The Morden fear how fast humans advance. They fear what you might become." Tom stopped walking. "What does this have to do with us?" "Our engagement has upset their plans. A human-Valari alliance would protect Earth from Morden influence." Before Tom could respond, a Valari official approached. His scales were dark gray, his tendrils stiff with formality. "Elder Tarn," Lyra said, her posture becoming more formal. "This is Lieutenant Tom Reed." The Elder's 4 eyes studied Tom without blinking. "So this is the human who claims our Chancellor's daughter. It's an honor to meet you," Tom said, bowing slightly as Lyra had taught him. "The Council has concerns," Elder Tarn said, ignoring the greeting. "This union is unprecedented. Some believe humans are too primitive for such an alliance." Tom felt his temper rise but kept his face calm. "We may be younger than the Valari, but we have much to offer." "Do you?" The Elder's tendrils moved dismissively. "Your species still fights among itself. You pollute your own world. You barely understand the basic principles of interstellar travel." "We learn quickly," Tom replied. "And we value freedom and individual choice, including who we marry." The Elder turned to Lyra. "Your father indulges your fascination with humans, but many believe this engagement makes our people look weak." After the Elder left, Lyra's scales had darkened to a deep blue, a sign of distress, Tom had learned. "The conservative faction grows stronger," she said quietly. "They fear change." "Maybe our governments are right," Tom said, though the words hurt to say. "Maybe this engagement is causing more problems than it solves." Lyra's 4 eyes fixed on him. "Do you truly believe that?" Before Tom could answer, his device beeped with an urgent message. It was Captain Morris. "Reed, get back to the embassy now. We've intercepted communications from a Morden ship in orbit. Something's happening." As they hurried back, Lyra explained more. "The Morden would prefer humans remain isolated and vulnerable. Our engagement threatens their plans for your species." Tom felt a chill. What had started as a simple cultural misunderstanding now seemed to have galaxy-wide implications. "Whatever happens," he told Lyra as they reached the embassy, "I'm glad I met you." Her scales briefly flashed gold, the Valari equivalent of a blush. "As am I, Tom Reed." The Earth Embassy buzzed with activity when Tom and Lyra arrived. Captain Morris met them at the entrance, his face grim. "The Morden ship is using a stealth field, but our sensors detected it anyway," Morris explained as they walked quickly through the corridors. "They've sent a shuttle down to the surface." "Why would they do that?" Tom asked. Lyra's tendrils stiffened in alarm. They might be here for you, Tom. Inside the command center, officers monitored screens showing different parts of the Valari capital. Dr. Bell, the diplomatic specialist from Earth, stood in the corner. She frowned when she saw Lyra. "Lieutenant Reed," she said coldly, "I see you've brought your fiancé." Before Tom could respond, an alarm sounded. On the main screen, a figure in dark armor moved across the embassy grounds. "Intruder at the south entrance," someone called out. "That's a Morden assassin," Lyra said, her voice tight with fear. "They're here for Tom." Morris turned to his security team. "Lock down the building." The lights went out suddenly, plunging the room into darkness. Emergency lights came on a moment later, casting red shadows across worried faces. "They've cut the power," Morris said. "Everyone stay calm." Tom felt Lyra's hand grasp his. Her scales were now glowing faintly, providing a soft blue light. "We need to get you somewhere safe," she whispered. Tom shook his head. "I'm not hiding while everyone else is in danger." A crash came from the hallway, followed by shouts and the sound of weapons firing. The door to the command center burst open. A tall figure in black armor stood there, a weapon raised. "The human comes with me," the Morden assassin said, voice distorted through his helmet. Guards aimed their weapons, but no one fired, fearing they might hit others in the crowded room. Without warning, Lyra stepped forward. Her entire body now glowed with intense blue light. She raised her hands, and suddenly the air between her and the Morden crackled with energy. The assassin fired his weapon. The beam of energy stopped midair, caught in the field Lyra had created. The Morden stumbled back, surprised. "You will not harm him," Lyra said, her voice deeper than Tom had ever heard it. The energy beam reversed direction, striking the assassin's weapon and destroying it. The Morden fell back, then turned and fled. The room was silent with shock. Tom stared at Lyra, who now looked tired, her glow fading. "What? How did you do that?" he asked finally. "The Valari have abilities we do not share with other species," she said quietly. "We can manipulate energy fields." Dr. Bell stepped forward. "You've been hiding your true capabilities from Earth." "As you hide things from us," Lyra replied simply. Later, after security had been restored, Tom and Lyra sat alone in a small meeting room. "There's something I need to tell you," Lyra said. "The Valari have been watching Earth for centuries, protecting you." "Protecting us? From what?" "From the Morden. From others who would exploit your planet or destroy your civilization before it could reach the stars." Her tendrils moved nervously. "My interest in humans wasn't random, Tom. I've studied your species my whole life." Tom stared at her. "Did you plan our meeting?" The eye contact. Lyra's scales flickered with colors Tom had never seen before. "I knew what would happen if you looked into my eyes long enough. I hoped you would. You wanted this engagement. I believed a formal connection between our species would benefit both worlds." She hesitated. "But I didn't expect to develop real feelings for you." Tom was silent for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was soft. "I have feelings for you too. Real ones. Not because of any diplomatic advantage or alien protection." Lyra's scales glowed with warm gold light. "Even though I'm the ugliest Valari in the galaxy." Tom smiled. "To me, you're the most beautiful alien I've ever seen." Her tendrils curled in happiness. "The Morden will try again, Tom. They fear what our union represents." "Let them try," Tom said, taking her hand. "We'll face them together." Morning light filtered through the windows of the Earth Embassy as Tom faced Admiral Wilson on the communication screen. Dr. Bell stood beside Tom, her face tense. "The situation has changed, Admiral," Tom explained. "The Morden Collective is targeting our diplomatic mission. They see a human Valari alliance as a threat." Admiral Wilson frowned. "Lieutenant Reed, your mission was to establish basic relations with the Valari, not get engaged to one. I need you to find a way out of this arrangement immediately." Tom took a deep breath. "Sir, with all respect, I believe ending the engagement would be a mistake. Dr. Bell stepped forward. Admiral, Lieutenant Reed may be emotionally compromised. The Valari have shown advanced abilities they've hidden from us. We should proceed with caution. The Admiral's face hardened. Reed, I'm ordering you to end this engagement. That's final. After the call ended, Tom stared out the window at the Valari city, its crystal towers shimmering in the sunlight. Dr. Bell watched him with concern. You actually care for this alien, don't you? She asked. Her name is Lyra, Tom said quietly. And yes, I do. Dr. Bell sighed. I was sent here to help you escape a diplomatic mistake. But I can't help someone who doesn't want to be helped. Before Tom could respond, Captain Morris burst into the room. We're picking up multiple Morden ships entering the system. It looks like a small attack fleet. Alarms sounded throughout the city. Tom rushed to the command center where officers monitored the approaching ships. Lyra arrived moments later, her scales pale with worry. The Morden rarely attack directly, she said. They must be desperate to stop our alliance. High Chancellor Voss contacted them through the emergency channel. The Valari fleet is moving to intercept, but we need time to position our defenses. Tom studied the tactical display. The Morden ships are approaching in a standard attack formation. They're expecting your ships to meet them head-on. Lyra looked at him. What are you thinking? Human battle tactics, Tom replied. Your fleet could use the third moon's gravity to slingshot around and hit them from behind. The Chancellor considered this an unusual approach. Our commanders would not think of such a strategy. That's why it might work, Tom said. The Morden won't expect it either. As the Valari implemented Tom's suggestion, he realized everyone in the command center was watching him. Dr. Bell, Captain Morris, even the Valari officers, all waiting to see if his human approach would succeed. The tactical display showed the Valari ships disappearing behind the moon, then reappearing behind the Morden fleet, catching them by surprise. It's working, Morris exclaimed as the Morden ships scrambled to respond. In the middle of the battle, Lyra took Tom aside. There's something you should know. If we formalize our union, it would establish more than just a personal connection. What do you mean? It would create a binding alliance between our species. The Valari would be obligated to protect Earth. The Morden would never dare attack your world directly. Tom looked at her closely. Is that why you chose me? For this alliance? Lyra's tendrils moved gently. It was the reason at first. But now, her scales glowed with warm colors. Now my reasons are different. On the tactical display, the Morden ships were retreating. The command center erupted in cheers. Tom faced a choice. Follow his orders and end the engagement, or follow his heart and create an alliance that could protect Earth. Dr. Bell approached him. The Admiral expects your answer, Lieutenant. Tom looked from her to Lyra, then back to the display showing the retreating Morden ships. Tell Admiral Wilson I've made my decision, Tom said firmly. I'm staying with Lyra. Tell him that today, one human's choice might have just secured humanity's future among the stars. Dr. Bell studied his face, then nodded slowly. I'll tell him. And for what it's worth, Lieutenant, I think you're making the right choice. The Great Hall of Unity sparkled with crystal lights that changed colors in rhythm, with the soft music filling the air. Tom stood at the center, wearing a formal Earth uniform modified with Valari symbols. After weeks of preparation, the day of the ceremony had finally arrived. Captain Morris approached, straightening his own formal uniform. Earth Command eventually came around. The Admiral sends his congratulations. Tom smiled. Amazing how quickly they changed their minds after the Valari offered to share their shield technology. Politics, Morris shrugged. But I think you'd have gone through with this even without their approval. You're right about that, Tom admitted. The music changed, signaling the arrival of Lyra and her father. The crowd of humans and Valari turned to watch as they entered. High Chancellor Voss led the way, his scales shimmering with formal colors of deep purple and gold. Behind him walked Lyra. She wore a flowing gown that seemed to be made of living light. Her scales glowed with a soft blue radiance that lit her path. Among the Velari guests, Tom heard whispers, still surprised that a human would choose their ugliest daughter. But to Tom, she had never looked more beautiful. The ceremony blended traditions from both worlds. They exchanged vows in both languages. Tom placed a ring on Lyra's finger, a human custom she had come to appreciate. She wrapped a shimmering tendril of living energy around his wrist, a Velari bond symbol that would fade after the ceremony, but leave a permanent mark only visible to other Velari. With this union, High Chancellor Voss announced, "Our worlds are formally allied. The treaty is sealed not just with words, but with the joining of lives." After the ceremony, representatives from both species signed the official alliance documents. Dr. Bell, who had chosen to stay as Earth's ambassador, watched with approval. "You've made history today, Lieutenant Reed," she said. "Or should I say Ambassador Reed now?" Tom looked surprised. "Ambassador. Your new title," she confirmed. "Earth Command wants you to serve as our first official ambassador to the Velari. Who better than someone who understands their culture firsthand?" Later, at the celebration, Tom and Lyra found a quiet moment alone on a balcony overlooking the city. 3 moons shone overhead, casting multiple shadows. "Do you regret it?" Lyra asked, her tendrils moving gently in the evening breeze. "Tying yourself to the galaxy's ugliest alien girl?" Tom laughed. "I wish you'd stop calling yourself that." "It's what my people call me," she said, but her scales flickered with amusement. "Well, my people think you're extraordinary," Tom said. "And so do I." In the weeks that followed, other humans and Velari began cultural exchanges. Scientists from both worlds shared knowledge. Artists explored new forms of expression. And across the galaxy, other species took notice. 6 months after the ceremony, Tom and Lyra stood on the bridge of the starship Harmony, a vessel built with both human and Velari technology. Its mission: to visit other worlds and expand the alliance. "The Trillion system has expressed interest in joining our alliance," Lyra said, studying the star charts. "Their representatives want to meet with us." "Then that's where we'll go next," Tom agreed. As the ship prepared to jump to faster-than-light speed, Tom looked at the crew around him, humans and Velari working side by side, each bringing their unique strengths to their shared mission. He turned to Lyra, who smiled with all the warmth her alien features could express. "Who would have thought," Tom said, "that one accidental glance would lead to all this?" Lyra's tendrils curled happily. Perhaps it wasn't entirely accidental. As the stars streaked past the view screen, Tom reflected on how a simple cultural misunderstanding had changed not just his life, but potentially the future of the galaxy. One glance, one mistake, one love, and now, one new beginning.